If you want to follow what's happening in small business, make sure you follow either TheInformer.tv or Angela Vithoulkas, who joins us, by the way, all the way from Sydney via Zoom. We can use technology. Oh, come on, it's not that bad, Angela. But we want to talk small business because there's so much going on. There is a recovery underway, right? And you know what I've just discovered? And apparently it's official. And I love using this sort of terminology because it's like I'm about to give you a scene out of Mission Impossible, right? Should you choose to accept this responsibility, you know, read the message, and then you have 5 seconds before it self-destructs. Well, this won't self-destruct. At least I hope it doesn't. But I'm hearing that small business is absolutely vital for jobs recovery, and hey, it could well be our path out of COVID. Now, it's not me saying this, yeah, and it's not you saying it. Who's saying it? Which gives us great joy, because it's an organisation that is really making huge strides, especially in the last 4 or 5 years that it's been developed. We're talking about, come on, drop
Zero.
it. Zero. And we're not
talking about zero.
We're not talking about zero. I hear. No, it's not zero. It's XERO, which is the accounting company which is going gangbusters and is even making huge waves around the world.
Well, I have a lot of respect for them when they do data release, because they often compile these reports and release them several times a year. This one is called the Job Ahead report that they've just put out, and they aggregated the information from 300,000 small businesses, but anonymously.
Okay.
So they looked at the real data. This wasn't survey questions. This was real data. Pulling it apart, compiling a report and saying, here are the facts. And the facts are that if we want to truly be invested in a COVID recovery journey, then small business has a big part to play, because the data is very clear that we have to be able to create 210,000 jobs a year moving forward that are directly from small businesses or SMEs in the Australian economy. And George, right now, normally pre-COVID, we were only coming up with about 100,000 a year. So we've got to double our effort.
You know, for those that don't know about Xero, and you talk about the data, they are tremendous in that they know the inner workings of every company and contributor and client who becomes part of Xero. So when they draw from that vast repertoire and network and that database, this sort of information, they're not making it up. It's based on strategic practices and what they're seeing. So I concur 100%. When they're saying it, everyone's got to be looking at it, and that includes every layer of government: council, state government, federal government. Yeah.
So the data also showed, and we already know this, that the casualties out of this pandemic have been younger employees, women, and we know that. And we also know that casuals were hit hard. Now, there's been a lot of controversy around casuals and their work situation, but the reality is that casual work worked for lots of people, in that, you know, it might have been students on uni holidays, or people that contract out, etc., and they just wanted to top up their job. But they were all the first to feel the huge impact of COVID on jobs. The other interesting fact, of course, is that those small businesses that had more customer contact or customer facing jobs or businesses, they also felt the hit and are still seriously impacted by COVID. And we know that, like hospitality or tourism. Now, another interesting fact, George, is that this report also touches on that employees in small businesses that are higher paid have only had maybe a 13% impact on their jobs, whereas those that are in the more lower paid jobs have been hit by almost 23% impact in terms of the negatives that come out of COVID and small business. So there's a direct correlation with the smaller end of town and our earning power, as opposed to the bigger end of town and their earning power.
And I noted in your LinkedIn post earlier this week, the feedback we're getting from people who are watching the interviews, who are watching and following you. And all I keep seeing is, go get them, Angela. Don't stop. And yes, tell it as it is, because there are so many players, so many small businesses, small business enterprises that are seriously struggling. All right. Yes, we are getting ahead. Yes, we are making massive movement, and that's super encouraging. But let's not forget that as we go forward, there are still many more that are bleeding or have lost their way.
And 45% of these small businesses that we are looking to make sure that they add 210,000 jobs per year moving forward, 45% of them are between 1 and 20 employees. So they are truly small businesses or SMEs who are just trying to keep their head above water, and we are asking from them a mammoth task.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue to talk and support them and raise the questions that need to be raised, and let's see who's listening, and we want to get more people listening. And if you want to follow either Angela or ourselves, make sure you do it on TheInformer.tv. It's very simple. The other thing I was going to talk to you about, and I've just heard the news, The Godfather's coming to Melbourne. What?
Correct.
What?
Now, you and I have this Sydney-Melbourne rivalry, but
I didn't know it until you just mentioned it.
It's important to note that you have ownership of a great independent games business who has been asked, they've been given an offer by Hollywood they can't refuse, and they've taken on the franchise task of developing a mobile video game app called The Godfather. Now, the interesting thing here is that it's going to be free, available on iOS or Android. And look, I don't often talk about the tech side of small business because it's quite a niche market. They're a big organization. They're floated on the stock exchange. They've just produced a Legally Blonde game as well, but they are an Australian. They are independent. I know they're in Melbourne, but that's quite poignant with The Godfather and the Italian community. But Hollywood's come to us. So if we are looking at, and this is the flavour of today, George, if we are looking at trying to add 210,000 jobs every year from SMEs, it's the tech community that's going to be really able to rise to the occasion. And this company is a great example of that.
So Angela, you talk about the game industry making a huge impact, and it has a terrific opportunity to lead us forward. But we're seeing Hollywood come down under, and only the other day in the heart of Melbourne, Port Melbourne in fact, the main street, Bay Street, was locked off. They were sitting there making this feature movie called, I think it's Sinkhole, or maybe the working title. But I was sitting at this brand new cafe, very swish in Port Melbourne, called Mia Zoe, sipping my coffee, watching the extras running in this disaster scene. Apparently Melbourne was coming apart at the seams, and here I'm thinking, very good, nice, yeah, green screen technology everywhere, extras galore.
You didn't get a selfie?
Oh, well.
You didn't get a selfie?
We'll talk about that off screen.
So I think it's quite important to note that the arts industry in general, whether it's film or creatives in general, were really badly hit by COVID right around the world. And Australia has been a good option for Hollywood to come here because we're essentially COVID free. We also have a lot of talent and they get bang for their buck. So it's not just the gaming industry, but it's lots and lots of small businesses in the industry here that are going to reap those benefits and help to make those 210,000 jobs we need every year to recover.
Each and every segment of the weeks that we do these interviews, you always tend to finish with something light. And I notice now that I've been given this clue, 1-800 lasagna. Is that the key that opens up the story?
Yes. I mean, who are you going to call if you're hungry?
1-800 lasagna.
1-800 lasagna. So this is a really cool small business. It's very, very small. The business owner is Joey Kellogg. He started out with a really shitty mate's car, some ingredients, and a normal kitchen oven. And he really took off in COVID. He focused on one product, lasagna. Who doesn't like lasagna? I've only ever met one person in my life that didn't like lasagna, and they're not my friend anymore. So the good news here is that it's a niche business. There's a unique marketing concept there where the name and the telephone number reflect the product. He only makes one product. He's in Fitzroy. In the height of COVID, He was delivering about 50 lasagnas in a 2-hour window everywhere. And now he's set up a shop where you can go and get your lasagna. So the main thing is here, there are lots of small businesses who during COVID did create a way of employing more people and keeping the economy running and feeding us, George, feeding us more importantly.
No, I can't argue with that. We've seen people pivot, and when they've struck gold, it's been fantastic. But I like the fact that he's been brave enough to stay on message. One product, he doesn't give you 55 million options, which adds to the cost, as you know. You've worked in cafes and you've run businesses, and you know that every item that you add to the menu creates a challenge, doesn't it? And a cost. So,
Correct.
So he's done it as simple as he can. We wish him all the very best. 1-800-LASAGNA.
Correct.
I might have to try it.
Good job, Joey.
Good job, Angela, is what I was going to say. Thank you very much for joining us. Angela Vithoulkas on The Informer. And as I said earlier, if you want to know more and if you want to follow us on The Informer, it's theinformer.tv. Thank you, Angela.